My name is Amran Mansour. I am 36 years old, and I have lived in Dearborn, Michigan my entire life. For 8 years, I served as an Imam, leading prayers and teaching the Quran. The community saw me as a man of faith, but in secret, my heart was a fortress of pride and a deep, growing coldness. I believed my religious zeal was a service to God, but on April 12th, the truth finally caught up to me. On that evening, 6 days ago, my car was crushed by a semi-truck on Michigan Avenue. I remember the sound of the metal folding and then a sudden absolute silence. My heart stopped for 12 minutes. While the rescuers fought to pull my body from the wreckage, I was pulled into a place where the air felt like a living presence. I was dead, yet I was standing in a light that revealed every corner of my soul. The darkness of the accident didn't just fade. It was swallowed by a brightness that had no source. It was as if the light itself was alive, breathing and watching me. I stood there without a body, yet I could feel everything. The weight of my 36 years was suddenly heavy upon me. I saw my childhood in the streets of Dearborn, the smell of the bakeries, and the sound of the call to prayer that I had followed since I was a boy. I saw my father's face, etched with the weariness of 30 years in the factory, his eyes always full of a quiet hope that I would be a man of God. But then the light shifted, and I saw the other side. I saw the moments of my life where the air was thick with arrogance and religious hypocrisy. I saw myself standing before young, impressionable men, using the holy words of my tradition to hide my own lack of love and to build walls of judgment. I saw the internal plans I had made, the way I calculated my own status and power within the community. In that light, there was no way to dress it up as piety or holy service. It was just dark. It was a jagged, hollow coldness that I had carried in my chest while smiling at my neighbors. I wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. The silence was absolute, yet it was not empty. It was a silence that was waiting. Then he was there. I did not see him approach. He was simply the center of everything. He was a Middle Eastern man, looking to be in his mid-30s, wearing clothes that were simple and worn, the kind of man you would see working in a carpenter shop or walking along a dusty road in Lebanon. But when he looked at me, the sun itself would have seemed like a flickering candle in comparison. His eyes were the most terrifying and beautiful things I have ever seen. They didn't just look at my face, they looked at my history. They saw the day I decided that judgment was easier than mercy. They saw the moment I stopped praying to God and started praying to my own sense of importance. I fell to the place where my knees should have been. The shame was a physical pressure, a heat that scorched me, because I realized I was standing before the very truth I had spent my life trying to minimize. I knew him. Every fiber of my being recognized him. This was not the messenger I had spoken of in my sermons. This was not the prophet who was merely a footnote to a later revelation. This was Jesus Christ, the living Word, the Son of God. I waited for him to speak a word of judgment that would end me forever. I expected him to cast me into the outer darkness for the pride I had carried in his Father's name. Instead, I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was a hand that had known work, a hand with calluses and strength, but the touch was lighter than a breath. I looked up, and I didn't see anger. I saw a grief that was deeper than the ocean. He looked at me with a love that felt like it was tearing me apart and putting me back together at the same time. His voice wasn't a shout. It was a quiet, steady power that filled the entire universe. He said, "Amran, I have loved you since before the world was made. I have walked every street of Dearborn with you. I was there in the hospital when you were born, and I was there in every quiet moment where you chose your pride over my grace. I did not come to you because you are good. I came to you because you are mine, and you have been fighting against the very one who died to set you free." The love in his voice was more painful than any punishment. It was the love of a father for a son who had tried to burn down the house. He told me that the religion I had practiced was a shell, a form without a heart, and that I had used the name of the divine to hide my own shadows. He said, "The truth is not found in a system of laws, but in a person. I am the way. I am the truth. I am the life." He reached into the very center of my being and pulled out the knot of spiritual pride I had carried for years. It felt like a surgery of the soul. Then Jesus began to speak of what is coming. He told me that I was being sent back not just to live, but to be a witness. He said the world was standing on a threshold, and that in May 2026, He was going to move in a way that would leave the nations without excuse. He didn't give me a map or a schedule of dates. He showed me the reality of what his Spirit is about to do. He began to show me visions of May that were so clear I could smell the air and feel the tension in the cities. He showed me the nation of Iran. I saw the ancient cities and the crowded markets, but then he pulled the view closer into the homes. I saw families huddled together, not in fear, but in a strange, electric excitement. He told me that for 40 years, a seed had been growing in the dark soil of that land, watered by the tears of those who were persecuted. He said, "In May 26th, the harvest will break the surface. You will see my people come out of the shadows. They will no longer speak of me in whispers behind locked doors. They will stand in the public squares of Tehran and Isfahan, and the authorities will find that their threats have lost all power. It will be a movement of such scale that no news organization will be able to explain it. They will look for a political reason, but they will find only my name on the lips of the people." I saw a young woman in a hijab standing in a courtyard, her face illuminated by a joy that didn't belong in a world of oppression. She was holding a small, worn book, and as she spoke, others gathered around her. The fear that had held that nation for decades was simply melting away. Jesus told me that this was only the beginning. He showed me the prisons in Iran, and I saw guards falling to their knees as they heard the songs of the believers. He said, "In May, what was built in the hidden places will be seen by the sun. Tell them that I have been there the entire time, in every cell and every secret meeting." Then he shifted the vision back to America. He showed me the very community I had been a part of. I saw men I knew, men I had shared meals with while we discussed our religious traditions, but they were different. I saw a man in a home in a city far from Dearborn, a man who had been the most hardened in his legalism. He was sitting alone and his face was buried in his hands. Jesus told me, "In May 2026, the hearts of those who think they are serving God through rigid tradition will begin to break. I'm going to visit them in the night. I'm going to show them the faces of those they have judged, and I am going to show them my own face. These structures of pride will not be dismantled by debate. They will be dismantled by a change of heart that no one can explain. They will walk away from their self-righteousness because they will realize they have been serving a shadow." The light shifted again, and Jesus showed me a wave starting to rise from the edges of the world, a movement that felt like the tide coming in, slow at first, then unstoppable. I saw the map of the Middle East, but it wasn't a map of borders or oil or war. It was a map of hearts. I saw millions of flickering lights appearing in the darkest places. He told me that in May 2026, a transformation would occur that history books will struggle to record. He showed me men in the deserts of Saudi Arabia and women in the mountains of Morocco who were all having the same experience at the same time. They were seeing him. I saw a man sitting in a small, dusty room in Cairo, his head bowed over a radio, searching for something he couldn't name. Suddenly, the room filled with the same light I was standing in. He didn't need a teacher or a book in that moment. He needed the person. Jesus said to me, "In May, I am bypassing the walls that men have built. I am going directly to those who have cried out to the Creator in the middle of the night. You will see a harvest of souls that will leave the experts speechless. They will try to find a reason, a social reason, a political reason, but there is no reason other than my love reaching out to those who were told I was a stranger." I saw millions of people across the Arab world waking up from a long sleep, their faces wet with tears of relief because they realized the God they feared was the Father they had always wanted. Then the vision pulled closer, back to the streets I have walked every day of my life. I saw Dearborn, Michigan. I saw the familiar intersections, the schools, and the mosques where I had spent my years. But it looked different in the light of May. I saw a quietness settling over the city. I saw the mosques during the hours of prayer, and there were spaces in the lines that hadn't been there before. It wasn't because of a boycott or a protest. It was because the people were in their homes, talking to a God they finally knew by name. I saw young men sitting in the coffee shops on Ford Road, their usual talk of politics and status replaced by a stunned silence. They were looking at their phones, reading the words of the gospel, their faces showing a peace that the heavy weight of legalism could never give them. Jesus showed me a specific mosque, one where I had often spoken. I saw the elders sitting in the back, their faces confused and worried because the old ways they had tried to enforce were losing their grip. Instead of rigid compliance, there was a hunger for truth. He showed me Arab families, Yemeni, Lebanese, Iraqi, walking into small, humble churches in the suburbs of Detroit. They didn't know the songs, and they didn't know the traditions, but they knew they had found home. He said Dearborn has been a fortress of tradition, but in May 2026, I am breaking the locks. You will see families who have been in these traditions for 1,000 years suddenly realize that their journey ends with me. Tell them that I am not an American God or a Western God. I am the God of their fathers, the one they have been reaching for through all their rituals. The vision then expanded to the entire Middle East. I saw the places where the world expects the sky to turn black with smoke. I saw the borders where armies were gathered, ready for a conflict that many believed would be the end. But as May 2026 arrived in the vision, I saw a hand being placed over the region. I saw a strange and beautiful restraint. I saw leaders who had been breathing threats suddenly find themselves unable to give the order. I saw soldiers looking across the lines and seeing brothers instead of enemies. Jesus said, "The world is waiting for the great fire, but I am bringing a great calm." In May, there will be de-escalations that will confuse every strategic mind in the West and the East. They will talk about diplomacy and secret deals, but the truth is that I am moving in the hearts of those who hold the power. I am holding back the storm for a season because my harvest is not yet finished. I have people in Iraq, in Syria, in Lebanon, and in Yemen who have been praying for peace. And in May, I am answering them in a way that will allow my word to run through those lands without hindrance. He showed me the city of Beirut, a place of so much beauty and so much tragedy. I saw the believers there tired and worn from years of struggle. I saw them suddenly filled with a new strength. I saw them opening their doors to their neighbors, sharing not just food, but the bread of life. I saw the same thing in Baghdad and Damascus. The places that the world has given up on were the very places where his light was the brightest. He told me that the peace of May would not be a peace made by treaties, but a peace made by his presence. Then the vision turned to the churches in America. He showed me the steeples and the stained glass, but he also showed me the coldness in many of them. He showed me people who used his name as a social label, who came to worship out of habit rather than love. He said, "In May 2026, I am going to shake my own house. I'm going to move through the pews with a spirit of honesty that will strip away the performance. You will see a movement of repentance that will start in the hearts of the most comfortable. They will see what my children in Iran are willing to suffer for my name. They will ask themselves what their own faith is worth." I saw people in quiet suburban churches falling on their knees, weeping because they realized they had been playing a game with God. I saw pastors discarding their polished speeches and simply crying out for the Spirit. Jesus told me that this movement would be the fuel for the global harvest. He said the American church had become a place of safety, but he was calling it to be a place of sacrifice. I saw a new generation of believers rising up, young people who didn't care about politics or programs, but only about knowing him and making him known. Jesus then shifted my focus to a generation that I had spent years trying to influence. He showed me the young men. He showed me faces from London, from Paris, from Istanbul, and from the very streets of Dearborn. These were the ones who felt that the world had no place for them, the ones who carried a restless fire in their blood. I saw them in dark rooms, lit only by the glow of their screens, looking for something worth living for. I saw the way their genuine hunger for God, a holy, beautiful desire for significance, had been misdirected into empty paths. He said to me, "The enemy of souls has pursued these young men with a lie, telling them that the only way to prove their devotion is through rejection and isolation. But I am pursuing them with the truth. In May 2026, you will see a great turning. You will see young men who were on the very edge of losing themselves to the darkness suddenly stop. I am going to reach them in ways that no program or authority can. I will speak to them in the quiet of the night, just in dreams that they cannot dismiss, and through voices that the old systems cannot silence. I saw a young man in a city in Europe, a boy who had been filled with bitterness. But as the light of May touched him in the vision, I saw the bitterness crack. He didn't change because he was afraid. He changed because he realized he was seeking the very source of the life he was longing for. Jesus showed me that this movement would not be a trickle. It would be a landslide. He showed me university campuses where the talk of division and hate would suddenly be replaced by a profound, searching silence. He showed me young men gathering in parks not to plan arguments, but to ask the real questions they had been afraid to ask. He said, "They have been told that I'm a weak prophet, a man of the past. But in May, they will realize I am the king of the future. I am the answer to the hunger they feel, the desire to be part of a kingdom that actually lasts. Tell them to come to me. Tell them that their fire is not wrong, but it has been pointed in the wrong direction." As I stood there, the visions began to fold into one another, creating a picture of a world that was being breathed upon by the Spirit of God. I saw the Iranian church, no longer a secret, standing like a city on a hill. I saw the spirit of pride and division in America dissolving like mist in the morning sun. I saw the millions across the Middle East whose hearts were finally finding rest. I saw the calm over the borders, a peace that defied every human plan. I saw the American churches being stripped of their pride and clothed in a new, honest humility. And I saw the young men finally coming home to the Father. The weight of what I was seeing was almost too much to bear. I looked at Jesus and I felt a question rising in my heart, one I didn't even have to speak. I wanted to know why he was showing this to me, a man who had been a hollow shell of a leader. He looked at me with that same piercing love and said, "Omran, I did not go to the cross for those who have it all figured out. I went to the cross for the lost, for the prideful, and for the ones who have spent their lives building walls against me. Your life was meant to be a testimony of my mercy. Go back and tell them that no one is too far gone. Tell them that the door is still open, but the time is short." He reached out and touched my chest, right where my heart had stopped 12 minutes before. The moment his fingers brushed my spirit, I felt a surge of life that was almost violent in its power. The light of the NDE began to pull away, or rather I was being pulled away from it. The silence was replaced by a roar of sound, a rush of cold air, and the crushing weight of a body that was broken and bleeding. The first thing I felt was the bite of the trauma table under my back. It was cold, hard, and smelled of chemicals and old blood. I heard the high-pitched whine of a monitor and the frantic voices of people who were used to seeing death. "He's back! We've got a rhythm! Get the attending in here now!" I tried to open my eyes, but the lights were like needles. I felt the tube in my throat, the ache in my ribs, and the throb of a life that had been forced back into a shattered vessel. I was Amran Mansour again, but the man who had driven that car was gone. The man who had hidden behind religious pride was dead. I lay in that hospital bed for 2 days, drifting in and out of a sleep that was filled with the echoes of what I had seen. The cardiologist came to see me on the second day. He was a man who had seen everything, but he looked at me with a genuine confusion in his eyes. He said, "Mr. Mansour, you were gone for 12 minutes. By every rule we know, you shouldn't be here. And if you were here, you shouldn't be speaking. Your brain shows no signs of the lack of oxygen. I can't explain it." I looked at him and said, "I can, but you're not going to find it in a textbook." He just shook his head and moved on. On April 15th, my wife Layla came to sit by my bed. She had been there since the accident, her face pale and her eyes swollen. I took her hand. It felt so fragile and real. And I told her everything. I didn't hold back. I told her about the visions of Jesus, but more importantly, I told her about the years of religious pride and the emptiness I had hidden behind my status as an imam. I told her how I had used my position to build my own kingdom instead of serving God. She didn't scream. She just sat there, the tears falling silently onto my hand. When I finished, she asked me if it was all true, the visions of May. I told her it was as real as the bed I was lying on. On April 16th, I made the choice that I knew would change the rest of my life. I sat with the elders and the people I had led. I didn't give them a polished sermon. I gave them the truth. I told them that the man they had respected was a fraud, a man who loved his own position more than the souls he was supposed to shepherd. I told them about the king I met on that table. I told them I wasn't seeking their approval or a lighter judgment. I was telling them because the truth himself had commanded me to speak. Many looked at me with suspicion. Some looked at me with a fear they couldn't name. But I had never been more certain. The world I knew is over. My reputation in Dearborn is gone. Many in my community now see me as a man who has lost his mind or betrayed his heritage. My own family is struggling to understand the man I have become. But for the first time in 36 years, I can breathe. The knot of pride is gone. The shadows are gone. I am sitting here recording this because as I was given a task, I was told to be a witness to what is coming. In just a few weeks, May will arrive. You will see the news from Iran. You will see the strange reports of people standing in the streets of Tehran with a new hope. You will see the rigid systems of tradition in this country begin to shift for no apparent reason. You will see the numbers of those coming to Christ climb until it becomes a global phenomenon. You will see the mosques in Dearborn change. You will see the Middle East pull back from the fire. You will see the American churches fall on their faces in repentance. And you will see the young men find a new king. Today is April 18th. May is coming. Watch these events and then decide who you will follow. The door is open. Come home.